Hello everyone and welcome back to the first in Weasels over Syria campaign for the F-16 and DCS world, and welcome to mission 10, Pesky. And on this mission we are tasked with a bit of a humanitarian effort in that due to the worsening situation of the Syrian government there has been an uprising in Yadrub, which is in Syrian government-held area but is close to the Syrian democratic forces in the north, and unfortunately the Syrian government has responded to this with indiscriminate shelling of the town. And so what we are doing here is we're tasked with supporting an operation to take out the artillery positions bombarding civilians. Now the problem here is that to get the bomber in, this is a B-1 bomber going in with a set of standoff JSOW weapons, but for them to get within range they're going to have to go through a fairly heavily defended corridor, so our flight is tasked with clearing that corridor before they arrive. The bomber's call sign is Pesky here, and our targets are all located around the Saikal airbase. Now all 6 of the Weasels are going in for this in 3 flights of 2, each with 1 designated site. The other 2 sets are going in on SA2 sites. My target is an SA3 site due south of Saikal. And after neutralising the site, we are then to remain on station and take out any other threats that we can see. If we can't destroy the other threats, then we are to do wild weaseling and do our best to attract their fire so that the bombers can get in, get their payloads off and get out safely. Now the real complication on this mission is the armament. Due to lowering weapon supplies, we don't have any of the WICMID GPS guided bombs. Instead, all we have is the dumbfire cluster bombs. Do have 4 of these to drop, so I do have a little bit of options, but I am going to have to go and drop these things the good old-fashioned way, either being really good with CCRP release or diving in with a CCIP drop. My wingman is armed with a pair of harms for the suppression, and all the other wings are armed in a very similar way. So interesting bit of challenge there. Let's jump in and see how it all goes.
Sword lead, Sword 2-1 approaching waypoint 1.
Copy, Sword 2-1. Be advised, we have Russian flankers circling above us at Angels 2-5. Looks like they were waiting for us at the border.
Copy, lead. What are they doing?
Just watching us for now. All we can do is ignore them and continue with the mission. Well, so much for the element of surprise. Pushing for waypoint 2. Sentinel, Sword 1-1. Sword flight proceeding on mission 1601. Request words and be aware we are being shadowed by 2 Russian Su-27s that met us at the border. Understood, Sword 1-1. Clear to proceed with flag. Copy, Sentinel. And the Russians? No practice, Sword 1-1. Understood. Sword 1-1 out. Jeez, thanks, Sentinel. Cut it out, Rotor. Sword flight, switch vacuum. Sword free set.
Sword 2.
Vacuum, Sword 1-1. Request lowdown for Saikal mission area. Copy, Sword 1-1. Stand by. Sword 1-1, load out Saikal. Clear Fleet, Portal 177 for 115, type. Clear Fleet, Portal 186 for 126, type. Clear Fleet, 179 for 127, type. And load out. Copy, Vacuum. Any recent activity on those sites? Thank you, Sword. Sleeping all day. Looking for EW radars in that sector. Understood, Vacuum. Sword 1-1 out. Sounds quiet today. Let's hope it stays that way. I doubt it'll stay that way. Sword flight, fence in. Flankers are departing. Probably avoiding the threat range. Don't want to eat a stray Syrian Sam. Okay, sword flight, tighten it up. We're approaching the IP. Switch uniform for peak 1. Sword free set.
Sword 2.
Sword flight approaching IP. Bear 1, Spartan 3, report. Bear 1 on station and ready. Spartan 3, good to go. Copy. Sword is pushing on mission. Spartan 3, music on. Sword 2, Sword 3, proceed on mission. To get back on the ground, good hunting, lead out.
Sword 2.
Sword 3-1.
Sword 2-2 switch to Sword 2 on Victor.
So here, missions a go, we just need to start heading in.
2 set.
Okay, 2 pushing on target. Pesky TOT is 1145 Zulu.
Copy, lead.
2, 15 miles to target. I'm still showing the target is not active. You seeing the same?
A firm, lead.
Copy 2. Go high cover, I'm pressing.
Copy, 2 is cover.
So I had my weapons in CCRP mode before, because then the TGP defaults into tracking the speed, the sensor point of interest, and so it makes it a little easier to find the target. I'd already looked around during approach and found the exact radar site. It's the radar we want to take out. The rest are just launchers and the early warning system. And so I've already designated that as my target. I want to do a CCIP release because I don't trust myself with CCRP from this altitude.
5 miles to target, still quiet.
Check master arm. Mud, 6, northeast of target. Heads up, SA3 has gone active.
So I fly to put the CCIP designator over the target
Sword
diamond
2-1,
and
pickle.
release. Immediately turn to evade the incoming fire. As I'm turning, I look over my shoulder and see a perfect hit.
Good hit on the low blow. SA3 is out of action.
So go, pretty textbook first strike there, managed to get the target. I did drop 2 bombs just to make sure I'd get the target with not being too confident about where they would hit exactly. But now that's the primary threat out, but there is this SA6 that's popped up, and so we need to hunt and deal with that. That's a bigger threat than this SA3 ever was. Now in terms of hunting the SA6, only have a azimuth direction right now, don't really have good ranging. The longer I can keep it radiating and detecting me, the better a position the HTS pod can get. So I figure all I'm going to do is fly vaguely towards it, keeping it on about my 10 o'clock, letting it lock me, letting it radiate as much as possible to try and narrow down that view with an eye that if I get the location I can always run away and then come back in and deal with it another time. Have learned enough in this campaign though that I can't simply get my wingman to launch a harm at it because it will just shut down, and so I want that location. So I'm trying to triangulate it on the helmet-mounted camera. You get an indication of the exact direction a lock is coming from, which is really, really handy in terms of situational awareness. And I also do manage to get it up on my HTS here, and so plug in its approximate location. So I see where it is on my helmet-mounted display, but it's just the other side of the clouds. I'd prefer to get some kind of visual ID so I can at least remember for the future. As I'm doing so, they decide to launch.
Sword 2-2 engage SA6.
Sword 2-2 engaging.
I do briefly notch the target, I then turn too far and they relock. I don't really want to hang around in the area, so I'd prefer to put some distance in there. I tell my wingman to engage in the hope that that will force this to shut down. Otherwise here I'm just trying to keep an eye on the missiles, trying to invade these as much as possible. These aren't too difficult to evade, but I do need to watch them closely.
Sword 2 is going to hold an orbit on the north Atlantic. Shut down. There's one person.
Now, if there's an advantage to being launched on, it is that I have a really good visual ID on the location here.
Sword 2-2, Magnum SA-6, total 175 for 122. SA-6 has shut down.
So exactly as I thought, as soon as my wingman fires, the SA-6 does shut down to block that harm lock. And at this point I decide, right, I'm going to turn in. It's probably not going to stay shut down for very long. They normally come back up once the harm has crashed. And so this does give me a little window to get in there and drop my remaining bombs on this target. Now, I have managed to make the targeting pod move to the wrong set of targets just because there were more bright targets nearby, but I then check, and this is where having good situational awareness of where the target is visibly really helps, and I can just drag the targeting cursor back over to where it should be, so it'll circle here, and then I do see the targets. Now, a bit of an awkward feature here is because the radar has shut down, it's lowered its mast, which makes it quite a bit harder to tell apart from the tells, especially when they're hiding in their little revetments here. But I do in the end settle on this target being the odd one out, looking very different from the others, and so I decide this is probably the radar target, so go in on it. Now, I've not really seen any AAA near the area, so I'm quite happy to do a bit of a shallower approach that will keep the target in my HUD view for a bit longer. It means I can more easily line everything up and get a nice smooth approach, so that's exactly what I do here. Then heading in towards the target, I end up picking the release point so that it is a little short of the target, since it does seem to be that the CCIP marker is where the explosion trail begins, not at the mean point of impact. So that's where I've been trying to aim. So anyway, when I get that, I then pickle away. And once again, nice direct hit right where I wanted it.
SA-6 is hit. It's out of the game. Both SAMs are out of action. Good work, Forrest.
Copy 2. We'll set up overhead and wait for Pesky. Keep a lookout for new threats.
Copy, lead.
So it's just a nice calm wait, flying around the area, keeping an eye out for any other targets. I looked at HTS, and anything that was popping up I ended up tracking it down on the TGP and creating a mark point so I knew where everything was, just in case any of the active targets were a threat to Pesky as it came in. Otherwise, mostly just waiting during this.
All flights, Pesky 1 approaching target area. Copy, Pesky 1, Sword 1 AOR is clear of threat. Sword 3 clear.
Sword 2 area is clear.
Pesky 1, you are clear to continue. Copy, Pesky pushing. Sword Pesky, we're receiving fire can indications close to our release point. Can you run interference? Copy, Pesky. Sword 2, that's in your sector.
Copy, lead. Sword 2-2's on it.
Okay, Forrest, I'm Tally. Fire can is in a large revetted area about 500 meters south of Steakhouse Runway.
So using the HTS to get me close to this thing's location, since this wasn't one of the targets I'd pre-picked out, I do see the little spot there, and then as I zoom in a little closer I do ID that this is indeed a fire can site. I decide that I still have one cluster bomb, and so I may as well try and drop it on this. The problem is there is an SA-8 site at the airfield itself. They've not really been very active, but I figure if I'm going to make a diving attack, they probably are going to come online. Still, I do try and get close to the launcher, but then as I do start to get locked, so I decide to pull away. I don't want to mess with that SA-8 site, and this is taking me right over the top of it, so I pick a different route to approach. Now, as I'm repositioning to come in along the runway on the far side of the airbase from the SA-8 launcher, Pesky does launch its weapons.
Pesky 1, pigs away. Pesky 2, pigs away. Pesky is aggressive. Copy, Pesky, we'll cover your egress.
Now, Pesky is still in the area here, they're still egressing from it, so I still need to keep this fire control radar distracted, so I may as well go in for my bombing run, so turn in and start my dive. Now, once again I do start to get locked up. I really should have gone evasive here, but instead I just decided to push my luck. I am not far off the release point, can see the ticker running down the vertical drop pole, and so I decide to push it, flare, get within range and drop, and then immediately go evasive. And keep going evasive, do turn around to look at the target. Hit does go in, but I dropped a little bit too short. I was nervous trying to get that weapon off and go evasive as quick as possible, so it's a little short. I think I damaged this site but not taken it out. So as I go to put the targeting pod over it to do a visual inspection there, see it's still alive, but still I have distracted this long enough, Pesky is able to get out.
No problem, Pesky. Safe travels. Sword out. All sword lead. Withdraw to rally point.
So then with Pesky clear, nothing for us to do but to RTB. Now the mission isn't quite over, we do have a little bit of a complication on the way back.
Alright, I'm counting on 2 Russian flankers, our 6 o'clock high.
Copy 2. Damn, where did they come from? Sword 1-1, Sword 2 has a pair of flankers approaching from behind.
Copy, Sword 2. Keep it cool. They're just trying to rattle us. Keep it nice and steady. We'll see if we can chase them off.
Copy lead.
These flankers do get really close. You can see one here right on my wingman 6. The other one's actually really close to me, I just don't see him. So a little bit nervous because although we are armed for air-to-air, they very much have the advantage if they decided to shoot here. But thankfully, sense prevails.
Flankers are breaking off.
Sword 1, Sword 2 is clear. Russians are withdrawing.
Copy 2. Well, that's enough excitement for one day. We'll go over this in the debrief. See you all on the ground. Lead out.
Bug, approaching H4, making contact.
So after the Russians departed, it was a very short flight back. The Russians pretty much followed us into the SAMnet around H4, and so just a case of descending down and landing without too much issue. Bit of a hard landing, but that's par for the course for me on the F-16. All in all, really good mission. Another 100% on the results of the mission. Did all of the tasks and secondary tasks there. So I didn't manage to kill the fire control radar. I wasn't actually expected to. I was just expected to keep it busy, and certainly making a bombing run on it definitely kept it and its adjacent battery very busy focusing on me. Otherwise, I did manage to get the SA-3 low-blow radar along with a pair of refueling vehicles that were supporting it. And then I also got 3 refueling vehicles supporting it. And then on top of that, I also ended up getting that SA-6 straight flush radar. All really good, all really fun, really enjoyed that one. Nice bit of a challenge there with not great weapons, but a good in-game explanation of why you're using them, just that you're kind of running dry at what is available at H4 right now. You're on the middle of Jordanian desert. So really fun, really enjoying this campaign, still really looking forward to it. The next mission, but I'm feeling a little bit sad that this campaign is slowly drawing to a close. We've only got a couple more missions to go, but really hope you join me for those, and until then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.